Actually, I should have done a Shatner. It's all iconic.
There. Then we would have got it.
Yeah.
Well, you could have said iconic. Emphasis where it belongs.
That's right.
Put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Facebook. I'm going to let people know we're out here.
Are you sure
Well,
you want to do
people.
that now?
Take me to your leader. Well, I'm the alternate timeline, Craig, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
glad to meet you.
Yeah, I don't
Again,
think
for the first time.
I don't think I know you guys. Well,
Yeah,
we have
plausible
you guys,
deniability is always a good idea.
we have you guys in our timeline, but I don't think we've met.
Yeah, but you're not jerks in our timeline.
I'm infamous. It's more than famous. It's infamous.
Infamous.
All right, so let's do.
Oh, we got our viewer ready to go.
All right.
Just checking final audio levels.
Level. So is this better now, Chuck? Now I'm doing this?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, let's make sure the topic is trek.com. The topic is trek.com. The topic is nope.
The topic is not.
The top. I got to get this just right. The topic is trek.com.
There you go.
With feeling.
Nothing more than.
There you go. I got a new banner for us.
Hey. But see, they don't know who put that up, so it could mean anything.
That's right. Or yeah, there you go.
Craig just cannot get his fingers to go the right way.
I'm already trying to keep my left and right straight already, much less look at them.
Left is the one with the L on it, Craig.
That's right.
Unless you're an idiot and you do this.
Yeah.
I have 2 left fingers. Hello, listener Diane.
Alrighty.
I
My
thought
response hiccuped.
Your favorite song is Downtown? I thought your favorite song was
Downtown.
Oh Canada.
Oh, Canada. No, I guess you won't get sued for that
blah,
one.
blah, blah.
Yeah, how did it get 2 Facebook replies in a
I don't know.
huh? All
I
right.
would reply again, but that could be like
That
could come
good.
out 6 times the next time for all
Yeah,
I
let's
know,
don't do
so,
that.
no,
Just
we won't do
that
that.
good. Okay. Show number 140. You ready?
I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be.
Let's give it a shot.
You have, to sound like, you have to do the SpongeBob thing. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Take it around town.
Are you ready, kids?
Oh,
Imagination.
who lives in a spaceship above the sea?
above the atmosphere.
Kirk, he's a jerk.
Oh boy.
Wow, we have really crossed the streams. I think that means it's time to begin. So,
Oh, yes.
let's record in 5, 4, 3.
This is The Topic is Trek, episode 140 for Friday, June 30th, 2023. Coming up in this episode, Lawyer Up, Una is going to court. Admiral Janeway gets canceled.
Oh.
Nhan has to get back in time. All that and our Warp Speed Roundtable right now on The Topic is Trek. Toronto, on the edge of forever. Welcome to The Topic is Trek, the podcast that runs on impulse power. Join us for a journey where no show has gone before. If it has to do with Star Trek, there's a good chance we'll talk about it. Sooner or later, because on this show, the topic is Trek. Engage already. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another thrill-packed edition of The Topic is Trek. I am Clinton, one of your co-hosts. And of course, as I always point out, in order to be a co-host, I have to have other hosts. That's how it works. So first, beaming in to join me from a bunker someplace on a Klingon prison planet, I guess, is Mr. Craig Stepp.
That's what she said.
Isn't that The Office more than anything? I don't no, I don't think that's the hip new catchphrase anyone's going to be talking about around the water cooler. If there are water coolers any place anybody is anymore, I don't know about that either.
New, obviously not. It's been around for a while.
Yeah. All right. So let's move right on to beaming in our other co-host, Mr. Chuck Tomasi.
Oh, sounds like the
you wish.
sounds like the bandwidth is a little bit lesser on his side. I don't know.
Well, the buffer is buffering or something. I don't know, something like that.
Oh, Heisenberg compensators. You got to align them every other day, I tell you.
Chuck uses Chuck uses the dial-up transporters.
He's forming really, really slowly.
Yeah.
2 hours later. See, it all comes back to SpongeBob eventually.
Yeah, there you go.
We got there. It's a Paramount property, so we're good.
For now.
Well, how have you folks been the past couple of weeks while we've been away between episodes?
I've been pretty good.
Both been very good. When you said lawyer up, all I could think of was Saul Goodman's Cadillac. That's what his license plate said.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, Una better call Saul. Absolutely.
Better call Saul for Una. That would have been funny.
Yeah. Well, Pike's been hanging around with a respirator on to meet Saul. That would have been hilarious.
All right. Well, we're already getting into the first episode. So just to let you know, we're changing things up a bit. This time around, we're going to do the first of our 2 episodes that we're covering. Then we'll take a break for some quick subspace chatter. And then we'll do the second episode, followed by Warp Speed Roundtable.
Wow, I must have missed the staff meeting. Now I got to retrain my soundboard.
All right, let's see. You need a little cookie every time the soundboard does something correct, and it'll be fine. All right, so it's time to head out on our first main mission with an appropriate sound effect.
Spock's viewer. Yep.
I guess that works.
That's right.
And we should also, since we're going right into this, we should also do our spoiler alert.
Oh, yes.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
All right, so
Do I need to make
Craig,
that longer, guys? Do you mean make?
we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Okay.
We need that 12-hour one to go with the whole 12-hour Enterprise D engine one.
Yeah. We'll publish that under the Topic is Trek YouTube page, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy it.
Fall
Everybody will
asleep
love it.
to it, play it all night.
Mm-hmm.
Sensory overload while you sleep.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to start off with our first episode. And Craig, give us some background information on this first episode we'll be going to be talking about.
Okay. And of course, we're talking about Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 2, Ad Astra per Aspera.
Oh, I thought it was about banner ads in asteroids. I thought
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's exactly right.
that's
All right,
a David Hillcrest moment.
And this is written by Dana Horgan. And Dana serves as co-executive producer on Strange New Worlds. And this is their first script for the show. Dana also wrote the rumored to be a musical episode, Subspace Rhapsody, and it will premiere later this season. Dana's previous work includes being a writer and producer on Supergirl and Once Upon a Time, as well as serving as an assistant to the executive producers on the series Hell on Wheels, which didn't that have Anson Mount in it. So, which starred Anson Mount.
It's
See,
just keep reading.
and Colmini.
Craig always studies ahead on this show.
I know. I was trying to make it conversational. Thanks. It was also directed by Valerie Weiss, and this is Valerie's first time directing Star Trek. But other directing credits include episodes of Outer Banks, Prodigal Son, Bull, Why Women Kill, The Rookie, Suits, and How to Get Away with Murder, and more. So the short synopsis is Commander Una Chinriley faces court-martial along with possible imprisonment and dishonorable dismissal from Starfleet. Her defense lawyer is a childhood friend with whom she's had a terrible falling out.
All righty. So we're going to get right into it now. I've got a bunch of notes here that may not necessarily always go in order, but I want to talk about, since this is very much a concept episode and it's a courtroom drama, there's obviously not a lot of action in it.
Mhm.
And so I thought we'd spend time kind of talking about the finer points of what's going on in this episode. And my first part here is that we talk about Una's childhood in a provisional world, because her life was in peril because her family needed to hide their genetic alterations. And that's because her Illyrian colony had been granted provisional acceptance into the Federation.
Mhm.
But that would mean there would have to be an end to the tradition of genetic modification. So my question is, why would the Federation actually wish to foster the situation of people being put in peril by insisting that people have to stop their tradition of doing genetic modification?
It was around the whole genetic modification thing. The Federation fears it because of what happened with the eugenics wars.
Well,
Can't
that's the
have
other
any of that.
Yeah. Well, the other side of the coin on that is, but it's causing harm in and of itself by doing that. The other thing is the ban on augmentation stems from the eugenics wars, as we know, but
Right.
that's an Earth-centric issue. Why would other members of the Federation support such a ban? And are there issues with augmentation that are universal, like every civilization goes through this? Or does the United Earth have to support laws and regulations insisted upon by the Andorians, the Tellarites, and the Vulcans, as far as things that we would normally say, well, I don't think that's really worth saying you can't be in the Federation over.
Mhm.
So, I mean, to me, it's a big question. And clearly this doesn't get resolved in this episode. As we know, this goes into, we're having the same problem with Dal-Rel in Prodigy, that he can't get in because of this ban. And it just seems to me that it's causing as many problems as it's solving.
You know, it could very well be something like maybe the reason this colony was being accepted was to provide it protection, something like that, but not necessarily be a full-fledged member. I mean, who knows? We obviously didn't get any of that backstory.
Well,
So-
I mean, we know that it's provisional, and we
Mhm.
assume that the provision is that they stop genetic modification.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Which is part of their culture. So you're kind of torn because Federation's not supposed to interfere with cultures.
Right.
That's right.
And as far as we can tell, this is not something that is causing harm to anyone. So it's not-
Unless, I mean, we
Yet.
can speculate, but one of my guesses would be maybe the Vulcans, Tellarites, etc., have had similar experiences. They just didn't pass the law. You know, for all we know, the Tellarites could have been working on beauty genetics and it went horribly wrong.
Yeah. Every civilization
this is
has
the
had,
result. What do you mean? It went perfectly.
every civilization has had fedoras and heaters and augments, and it never worked out.
And pork pie hats. It's a thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it just struck me as very odd that it seems to be, as we'll find out in this episode as well, that it's just the results can be not what you intend them to be.
Right. And there was the, overall, I like this episode because it felt like good old Star Trek bringing social issues
Mhm.
out as a story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need some of that.
Right. And we get into a bit more obvious about that because the next thing that happens is let's see, I want to go not the Patel. Let's see. Let me go to this. There we go. I'm going to go here.
Mhm.
That Pike tries to sway Nira Ketul to be Una's lawyer, and she really wants nothing to do with the Federation, let alone have nothing to do with Una, because she feels like these draconian rules that the Federation has is an attempt to quash these people from saying who they truly are, that they have
Right.
to hide
Yeah.
who they are.
Yep.
Discrimination.
She says to
Or
Pike,
changing what they are to fit in.
right. She says to Pike, it was only a matter of time until she was outed. Starfleet will never let an Illyrian serve, not openly. Which is our first hint at this episode is going to go places that are going to be kind of uncomfortable.
Yep.
To go to. But he does convince her to take the case, being a civil trial lawyer, and that she has had some other cases that were a little bit low profile and they weren't
Right.
doing so well, that this could help her cause as well.
Got to admit it. You got to admire his tenacity, though. Willing to suffocate for a cause like that.
He should
Yeah,
have brought a
his
bigger tank of
oxygen
stuff
was-
with him, though.
Yeah, it was, he maybe had a bigger tank in his bag. He just wasn't showing it. So, hey, by the way, I don't know about you guys, but if the future has chairs with no legs, I'm not sure if I trust that. But the
Well,
power
we
goes
see-
out.
We saw that in Discovery
Yeah.
on the when they went to the future, the chairs had no.
and the desk. Yeah, and they just kind of materialized out of nothing.
Yeah.
What I want to know is that the planet itself. Now, I'm trying to figure out if this is the planet that the Illyrians were kind of like that wouldn't conform, were relegated to, because it doesn't seem like a really hospitable planet. I mean, yes, they can augment themselves to deal with it, but it's not a paradise that they're on.
No.
I think they need to augment the climate.
So
It
Yeah.
kind of looks like Canada with all the forest fires going on right now. So maybe they just filmed this in Canada.
Or
Huh.
New York.
well, they did, but
Yeah, they did.
yeah, this one struck me like it was filmed in just some office building, because when you have like an exit door,
To
You know,
balcony.
yeah,
You know
it's-
what's interesting is and when I see at least in my eyes, when I see little glimpses of outside of Starfleet like this, they're in a regular building, he's walking down the road, people are probably going to lunch and stuff, and it's just regular life carry on. Even it happened in Star Wars, when they got into a situation, it wasn't warlike, it was more like they were in a casino. It's like real life goes on outside of being in space and all that. And it's interesting to see that slice of life outside of Starfleet for a little
yeah,
bit.
they just did the same thing in Battlestar Galactica as well. They had casinos and so forth. And
We got quite a few eyefuls in the next episode that we'll talk about.
all right, so wanted to go back to let's see, I don't know where I lost that. Okay, I'm copying slides here. Now Captain Battelle is charged with being basically the prosecuting attorney in these proceedings, and she doesn't seem like she's really on board with doing this at all. And we're going to see later on where she does some verbal gymnastics
Mhm.
in one particular part of it. But my question is, was she the one who assigned Una that defense attorney that looked like he was fresh out of law school and said, yeah, I think it's a good idea, you should take the plea deal?
He was an intern, and then stupid
Well, if you
paralegal.
cannot afford an attorney, one will be assigned to you.
Yeah, stupid paralegal.
And she really is trying to do everything that she can. She has the same argument with Pike about the fact that if you look objectively at what I've been doing, I've been trying to do everything possible for her. She
Mhm.
even sits down with Pike and they have a conversation which starts out very cordial when they're in the
Yeah.
lounge, and then she just leans in and said, "And when did you first find out that she
Right.
was an Illyrian?"
To say these are the questions you're going to get asked if you take the stand.
So
Well,
she,
yeah, she was. I know. Yeah, she was obviously. She did a good. The character does a good job of doing her job, yet trying to give a little wiggle room at the same time.
hmm So I thought that was an interesting point to make. And then, of course, Catul takes the case, and she's brought on board the Enterprise to do some prep work
Hmm.
for what's going to be happening. And we get an interesting conversation between her and Nan.
Well, I thought the conversation between maybe it might be after this between Nan and Uhura was interesting.
Well,
as
that's
well.
after this because she
Okay.
says
Oh, right.
that
They'll find out what you find out.
she thinks that it's possible. Nan thinks it's possible that the information that basically outed Una was obtained legally. And so the attorney says, if you can get some information on that, that's great.
Yeah, this
And
is
the
where
next-
she's asking her for it. Yep.
Right. So the next thing we see is we have Nan going to Uhura saying, I need all these different records. Okay, great. No problem. No problem. And all the personal logs, dead stop
Yeah.
at that point. And Uhura's right.
Well, I thought that was interesting. And then for a moment, I forgot that Kirk was doing a personal log, and at first I went, wait, his got leaked, but no, it was Ken Cattrall's character was listening in on it at the door.
Right.
But yeah, for a minute I was like, wait a minute, that's not right.
And later on, we find out that it really isn't about Nan trying to figure out who else leaked this information. She feels like she was the one
Mm-hmm.
who
Right.
leaked the information because she was very angry with Una when Una was revealed to be an Illyrian and genetically augmented. And there's definitely some bitterness there, and that won't go away at the end of this episode about some of these issues.
Hmm.
But Catul explains that no, you're just a person and you have the ability to do good or bad. You only feel this way because that's the way they treat you and that's the way they want you to feel. Again, harping on the issue to shine a light on it, that you are not a bad person. There is nothing wrong with you. The norm is saying you are abnormal and you were to be feared and you were to be, put aside.
Right.
So again, another important point to be made here in basically this whole thing about rights as a person.
Yep.
And what you are entitled to. And you're entitled to be yourself and not have someone come along and say, well, you're related to this person from several hundred years ago, so you're bad news.
Wasn't there an episode about sins of the father?
Indeed.
Yep.
So it's been getting very heavy in the episode. What did you guys think of this bit where we have the hateful conversation going on in the lounge?
That ludicrous display.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. That was funny. She goes, "Oh, they're
I
Yeah.
love the intro where she's mocking him. Why, yes, Mr. Spock, I'd love to come over and taste your plomeek soup or whatever. She's having this bad lip reading competition.
That would be enjoyable.
Then like Spock come over and apologizing for that display.
Mbenga realizes, because he's spent time on Vulcan, he says they hate each other, and she's
Yeah,
staring. Are you messing with me?
Yeah, can't you read the body language?
Yeah,
Like,
you got to read those subtle hints because they're really subtle.
So this moment here definitely stood out as we're going to get really heavy. We've been going really heavy. I think we need a moment of levity at this point.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
We're about to strap in for some serious stuff. So, and I think it was fun. The problem I had with the scene was I didn't at first recognize that that's who Spock was talking to.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So I couldn't figure out that conversation until after it was over of who he
Oh, I
was.
did. I figured, two Vulcans near around that same area. They just decided to have dinner with each other, I guess.
Will you be home for the light festival, Mr. Spock?
No, I will
agreed.
not. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I raised my voice by 2 decibels in that response.
Right.
All right, we go into the trial now because the lawyer said you need to reject the plea deal, and Una is slapped now with full weight of the law, including sedition.
Well, there
Mhm.
was a discussion between Una and Catul, and she said, "We're going to do this my way." But
Right.
what? She said, "I want to be on the stand. I can, tell the story." And she says, "No, we're doing this my way." And
Yeah.
Una has a hard time fitting that shoe on her foot.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, it's her career on the line, so she's kind
Yeah.
of, I mean, she was one of the people between her and Pike who wanted her to be there, but now when it's actually coming to deadline and you're going into the courtroom, you start to get a bit of cold feet and, self-doubt creeping in at that point.
Well, she's also usually in control, and now she's not. So,
Absolutely.
That would
Absolutely.
be tough. That would be tough.
Although
From-
apparently she has full access to her uniform just sitting there in a basket. So she could just, put on her uniform anytime she wants to.
Well, you want to
Sure.
look good in court.
Yeah, that's true. And she does have to put it on later. All
wear
right.
it every chance you get because it could be your last time.
So we introduce our judges. We have a Tellarite, a human, and a Vulcan that are sitting in as judges for the trial. And Batal, as we already said, is the prosecuting attorney, but there's another Vulcan, the Vulcan judge advocate is sitting right next to her, observing how she is conducting herself in this trial.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person put on the stand is Admiral, yes, Admiral April. And after the long litany of his, his service record and so forth and so on, then Catul takes a direction that no one is comfortable with because she praises him for all his work, kind of going around the rules for this and that and the other thing. Then why wouldn't he do the same thing for Una?
Right.
Right.
And he had the ability to do so, and he gets all rankled, and all the judges get rankled, and they admonish Catul for bringing this up. Everybody watching the trial in Kirk's quarters is like, what the heck is that all about? When they get back to the chambers, Una says, what was that all about?
Yeah. That's right.
You will
And-
feel my wrath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all thinking the same thing at this point. So is her defense going to be one of just trying to discredit the witnesses? It seems like maybe that's what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
Can't quite figure out what the plan is here. But then we get some character witnesses on the stand. We have Mbenga and Nan and Spock, who are witnesses for the defense. And Mbenga pretty much just says that he spoke to her discretion and her empathy, and he found her extremely competent at her task and really had a feel for people. Spock admitted that he knew she was hiding something.
I know.
And what did you ever find out what she was hiding, Mr. Spock?
And did we all, from the clip ahead of time, did we all know that that's what he was going to say?
No.
I had a
I
feeling he was going to say something else, but I liked how everybody was hanging on his words.
I figured that was the one thing that he knew, because he mentioned the first day, right? He actually mentions that he met her on his first day on board the Enterprise. And I'm thinking, when he says she was hiding something, that's what she was hiding. Her penchant for Gilbert and Sullivan musicals.
Yeah. Well, I think he may have done that as a cover for not lying. Yes, I did have suspicion, but it was of this, as well, or I don't know, what I'm saying. I thought he was misdirecting a little bit.
Yeah.
Mr. Wolf, do you know Gilbert and Sullivan? I have not had a chance to meet
Yeah.
all the crew members.
I'm
That's
sure
right.
I'm sure they'll fine.
Yeah.
And Spock is asked if it's not logical to convict Una, and Spock agrees, but he considered it illogical for Starfleet to punish itself by removing such an extraordinary officer.
That's a pretty
So,
profound statement from him.
Yeah, it is.
indeed. And it's one of those things where if you ask the question of the witness and you haven't prepped the witness ahead of time or have any idea what the witness is going to say, you open yourself up to the answer you don't want.
Yep.
And that's not what the prosecution was looking for.
Yep.
And then Naan is on the stand and she recounts how Una rescued her from the Gorn breeding planet and, really watched over her because she had no family left. But then, now this is where the careful questioning comes into play here because Batel asks Naan if she ever suspected Una was an Illyrian. Okay, so Una replies, "No, I did not." And if you'll notice, both Naan and Batel glance down. Now, you don't get to see what they're looking at, but they're clearly looking at that pad
Mm-hmm.
that she has her hand resting on.
I assume
see
it
if
changes
it's-
color if you're lying.
Yeah, it's never really stated what would happen.
Yeah,
Near as I can
like a-
recall, it's never stated that will happen.
Like a mood ring of.
But
Yeah.
one has to assume because you use it to identify who you are, or for the computer to identify who you are, but you have to keep your hand there. So that to me is some sort of lie detector. So, all right. So she did not suspect that Una was an Illyrian. All right. Fair enough. Then the question is carefully worded. Did you ever get the impression that Una was hiding something? And Naan says, never. So she doesn't come out and ask the question, which is why the Vulcan, Basalt, makes a note at that point because he realizes that she has not asked, did you know
Yeah.
she was an Illyrian?
Says, did you suspect? And did you have an impression she was hiding something, but never asked the direct question, did you know?
Right.
Interesting. That seems like an oversight from a legal standpoint.
Well, she's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
She's clearly doing it. She's
Okay.
dancing around asking the question. She doesn't want to ask the question. So she's
Again,
Gotcha.
she's doing her job, but trying to give them every chance she can.
right. And she's trying to leave, as I think a lot of people were. Matter of fact, I've read some things online where, well, how come Naan actually lied on the stand? Naan did not lie on the stand. What Batel was trying to do is exactly what some people think. She asked the question, did you know she was an Illyrian? She doesn't ask that question.
Right.
So I thought that was a very good bit of verbal gymnastics, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, Una Chin Riley is put on the witness stand, much to a surprise of everyone, because you never want to put your client on the witness stand. Bad move. But we find out that Katal has a reason for doing this because she has Una recount things about her childhood and her life in the Illyrian colony and how they were forced to do things in the shadows, if you will, once the Federation said you need to put an end to all this genetic modification. And that led to all sorts of bad news, all sorts of hate, all sorts of violence. And did everyone catch the point where the first time she talks about a young boy being discovered as an Illyrian and he went home and augment was written on his door?
Yep.
That was Cthulhu's cousin.
Oh.
She said, my best friend's
Oh,
cousin,
yeah.
Ben
Oh, right.
Catul.
Yeah.
And
I did catch that later. I think after the second time I watched it.
so this part of the story, they're both familiar with.
Hmm.
And then we diverge at that point because when Catal is done, Una begins talking again and impressing more about the dire conditions in the colony and how they had to leave and leave everything and everyone behind. And she talks about how she did try to defend another boy who'd been accused of being an Illyrian. And that's why she broke her leg, and she would have died
Yes.
if they hadn't found a doctor in the middle of the night. And you can see Catul's face is like, she did not know that part of the story.
Right. Yes.
She did not know that Una was speaking the truth, that she had learned that she needed to stand up for others. And eventually she was going to have to stand up for herself and stop
Mhm.
hiding.
Yeah. Hence why she's on the stand.
Mm-hmm. And she says she wanted to join Starfleet because she looked at Starfleet and saw people from all different worlds banding together and working for the greater good. And she wanted to be part of that. And then she quoted the old slogan of Starfleet before the Federation: ad astra per aspera, to the stars through hardship, which resonated with her, obviously, because that was her desire, to go to the stars with Starfleet and overcome these issues. So it's great. We've got everything turned around. Looks like things are, you've got the judges are all kind of, yeah, that's, yeah.
Not
And
so fast.
not so fast, because Pasalk basically says,
Hey, not so fast. Sit back down.
basically says, hold my beer and watch this. And he
Right.
gets up,
Hold my plomeek soup and watch this.
goes over and asks Una when Pike was first aware of her genetic modified status.
Yep.
And she's under oath. And she confesses it was 4 months ago. And everyone, again, in in Pike's quarters, is like, what? So this seemed like, okay, now things have gone the other direction. And Basalt labels Una toxic and says that there is no logical alternative but to find her guilty. So we've gone from despair to hope to about to close the books on this case, because clearly, there's a conspiracy going on here and everyone's lying, and this just is going to go down horribly wrong.
Hey, by the way, go back to that last picture.
Yep.
Especially like the one with Mbenga, but those uniforms are pretty cool. Nice callbacks, obviously.
More uniforms to buy for cosplay.
Yeah. Put this on the list. That's right. We'll hold court at Dragon Con.
So after all this has happened, I think we break for a commercial at that point or something. Where it's like, mumble, things go badly. Then Catul breaks out the Uniform Code of Justice.
That's a big book.
It is.
And on a pad at this point?
Well, I figure I had this discussion with Bonnie about it. First of all, she's definitely got her Sam T. Cogley on by breaking out the books, the physical books to have. But it's also about the show. If you have somebody pick up a pad and read this stuff, it doesn't have the gravitas of basically laying this thick, bound volume.
I wanted to hear that book boom on the bench, but it did not.
Maybe she should just have a big, thick pad, instead of.
No, they'd be like trying to lift it up and it'd be like, I can't lift this thing.
Hey, can I get this thing in audiobook format?
It actually was a big, thick pad, and that was just the case cover for it. That's all we could find on Amazon.
Yes.
But she opened it, and we saw pages. It was weird.
Yes, to code 8514. I
And
thought
she-
for sure there would have to be a 47 in there somewhere.
yes, well, they don't
Yeah.
always do that. And she makes the argument, and convincingly so, that Una is essentially a refugee seeking asylum.
Yes.
She was fleeing horrible conditions. She went looking for aid, and she came to Pike asking for asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And all that has to happen at this point is for that to be confirmed as her status as a refugee seeking asylum. And the judges, while they can't overturn the regulation itself about the use of modification as a general blanket statement, they use it to say in this particular circumstance, because we must judge people as individuals, we grant the asylum and all charges are dropped.
I like that book.
But we're not
Ooh.
doing anything about augments yet.
Yeah. And no, we're not going to do about it for several hundred years, clearly, at this point. So
Yeah. That's right.
we should see if Discovery, it's still in the books in Discovery's time. about
Spoiler alert.
it.
I'm sorry, we did way with books. Now we just have pads.
Hmm.
And floating chairs. It's the future.
Yeah, floating chairs.
So Una is back on board the Enterprise, and she and Cthulhu begin their healing process. Now they know a bit more about each other and what they've both been through and what they both believe to be the case. But Cthulhu is still not the biggest fan of Starfleet. She gets on the pad and she says, though, I am looking at a Starfleet crew that proudly serves under an Illyrian commander. Like I said, it's a start.
Yep.
And then Una says, if you're all here, who's flying the ship? Don't you have jobs?
That's right.
Practically flies itself.
Get
Okay.
back to work.
Yeah, at the end, she thanks Pike, and then Pike says, well, you can thank me when you pay your attorney's fees, and hands
Yeah,
her the bill.
Yeah. Do you know how much I had to pay to travel all the way to that, to
That's right.
that nebula? Oh, I'm telling you.
And my arms are tired. Whew.
So quite the episode. Definitely, I think when we knew that this trial was coming up for Una, I don't think any of us saw it going in this direction.
No.
Yeah, not exactly, but I thought they might draw this out a little bit more. And at least in my mind, I thought maybe they'll draw this out a little bit more, but it seemed to wrap it up pretty easy in one episode.
Well, I mean, you've only got a 10 episode season. So if you spend too long on it, it's going to spill into a lot of other things.
Davey has a good comment here.
Yeah, Diane says, in real life, Pasalk would never be allowed to speak to Spock in private as he was a witness for the defense.
Oh,
That is logical.
Fair point.
Yeah.
I also thought that Nira K'Tul, when she was talking to La'an earlier, would make a good counselor. The way that she interacted with her and kind of put her at ease and said, well, kind of the, how do you feel about that? Or how does that make you feel? I enjoyed that interaction from a counseling standpoint, not a legal counsel.
Yes. And I've heard people say that they hope the character comes back. And while I would love to see the character back, the question is, it has to be in the context of something. And we know it can't be the dismantling of the law because the law still exists hundreds of years later. So she would have to be back for some good reason.
Well, Spock has a propensity to steal the Enterprise. He might need an attorney.
Again. They couldn't put Pelia on the stand, number one, because she's a new character and she didn't know Una that long.
Yeah.
And two, she would have come out swinging with, liar, liar, liar.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Couldn't resist. It was just right there.
Right.
All right. Do you have any other thoughts on this episode?
Are we rating it?
We will be rating it, but I want to make sure we've if we have any other notes on the episode.
Not really.
Um,
I did like the courtroom drama change. Again, those are pretty good episodes that they've done in the past, especially with Data and Measure of a Man.
And everyone has pointed out, everything I've watched or read has pointed out that the courtroom was Starfleet headquarters from Discovery, that round room with the opening
yeah.
in the center of it.
Yeah.
So I noticed whenever they would film the room, they would shoot at an angle that at best you saw the railing of the center opening. You would never really see that full space, and except from a long shot where it was kind of down at a level where you just saw the railing itself. So you never saw the opening in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
And also that in the briefing cell, in the cell, or the giant space, I should say, where Una's offered the plea, a deal, that they had flags up around the room.
Yes.
And you had the Vulcan flag, you had the Tellarite flag, the Andorian flag, and the United Earth flag, because that is what Earth is. Earth is United Earth. They're members of the Federation. That's who it is. And also Starfleet was there as well. But man, there was a huge room to have that little tiny table with a small conversation going on. Very odd.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to rate this on 1 to 10 books of uniform codes of justice.
That's what I was going for as well. You said it much better than me.
Well, I'm doing 1 because those things are heavy.
Oh, well, it's space. They're in space.
I've got the ebook version.
Yeah, the ebook. I downloaded the PDF online.
The audio weighs nothing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll start from my top down, which means I'm first, and then we'll go bottom up for the second one. I'm going to rate this a 10. I think this was classic Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
This was using what Gene always, said about Star Trek, using science fiction as a way of talking about the issues of today.
Yep.
And this is literally ripped from the headlines of things that are going on these days.
Yep.
So it doesn't get any more Star Trek than this, no matter how you try. Okay. How about you, Craig?
I would agree with the same sentiment what you just said. I was going to give it a 9, honestly, but yeah, it's a really good episode. Like I said, I've liked the courtroom dramas that they've done in the past, and this was, I think, as good as any. The discussion in the courtroom, the back and forth, Lon trying to track down who, turned Una in when it was Una herself. So yeah, I thought this was a great episode.
Okay, and how about you, Chuck?
I'm with you, Clinton. I give it a 10. I really walk away from a show going, dang, that was impressive. I liked it on all levels. Normally I'll walk away and go, no, how did that happen? Or you do have that one lingering question of why are genetic augments outlawed by the entire Federation? That's the only thing that might give me like a 9.75. Like, yeah, there's still that nagging question of why is this so bad across all the members of the Federation when we were responsible for the eugenics wars.
Indeed. All right. Well, I think that was a very highly rated episode, to say the least.
Yeah. I would say that's probably our highest rated one ever.
Could be. I remember I rated very highly the season 1 finale.
We'll have to get listener Diane to send us the spreadsheet.
Yeah, she's saying, no, leave me out of this. Leave me out of this.
Right.
All right. So now we're going to take our break from reviewing the episodes, and we're going to sadly check in with somebody to see if it's okay to do subspace chatter.
Must we?
We must.
You don't need all that subspace chatter.
Well, even when he gets a break and doesn't have to do it right at the beginning of the episode, I just
He keeps
it's-
staring. He keeps staring at me.
he does. It's creepy, isn't it?
Yeah.
His eyes follow you.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't escape it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a
He
minute.
keeps-
That's the Madame Tussauds wax figure. Oh.
Oh, that explains this. Why he
Yeah.
never blinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for what it's worth, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 100%. That last episode we talked about.
You know what?
All right.
I'll bump my rating up to a 10 just to
Ooh.
go with you guys.
Alrighty.
You know, by the way, when I give a 10, it better be really good. And y'all gave it 10s. I'm like, okay, well, I feel comfortable pushing it up that one other bar. So
Well, I think
I think I'm just going to stick with the 9.75 because of that little.
okay, I'm going back down and not. I'm kidding.
yeah, but keep in mind the fact that that's sticking with canon. That is established. They can't if they change that, that's wrong.
they could have at least justified it or explained it or something.
Well, they did. They justified it as saying that, I mean, again, because they don't get into the whole discussion of it, which I don't think they could, because that's, you're going to go off on a tangent, but Earth wants it in there because of the eugenics wars. And they say it like at least 3 times. It is because of the eugenics wars that this rule exists.
Well, you know, because of that, you know, when as far as entrance into Starfleet or anything like that, maybe that was pressed upon them. That's got to be part of your charter. You know, when you
Genetic modifications are bad, okay?
Yes, it became Edward G. Robinson all of a sudden. I don't know what's
Oh,
going on.
augments are bad, okay?
All right. Well, so we have one story we want to talk about, and just like that, Paramount Plus, their claim that they have every episode of every Star Trek series is no longer true.
Hey, I think it's only been true a collective of about 4 months.
Well, every series, they don't, the movies, they claimed every series, every episode.
Right.
So from the beginning, they've had every
okay.
series
Right.
and every episode
Until now.
But as of earlier this week, that is no longer true.
I don't understand what. Fill us in.
Well, on Friday, June 23rd, the streaming service announced that it was canceling 4 of its exclusive shows: Queen of the Universe, The Game, Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies, and one more show that had completed its first season, had been renewed for a second, and was currently wrapping up post-production on that season: Star Trek Prodigy.
That seems a little late in the game. You're wrapping up post-production.
Well, to add insult to injury, all Paramount Plus exclusive episodes of all 4 series have been removed from Paramount Plus. That's right. If you do a search for Star Trek Prodigy, what you get back is, we couldn't find it.
It makes no sense to me. I mean, why would they take it off?
Well, the move by Paramount Plus is designed to serve as a tax write-off. It is not uncommon in the new world of streaming services. Unfortunately, it is being done in conjunction with the merger of Showtime into Paramount Plus,
right?
A move we talked about earlier this year.
Right.
And the merger comes with the price increases that we also talked about. So you have people now who were watching Prodigy, it's removed, and some of the other shows as well, that could be fans of just one of the other shows or multiple shows.
And a price.
We're going to take those shows away, and we're going to charge you more for the service. This is not going down well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they have a buyer and they have to take it off for a little bit before it goes over to.
Nope, this was definitely, they had to have it. They had to have that off of the service, I think, by June 30th. Matter of fact, I think it was Queen of the Universe. Their episodes stayed up until the 30th, and so they're being removed tomorrow as the day we're recording this. And I think that was probably some sort of deal that had been set up ahead of time with the service, but all of the other 3 shows have been removed because you want that off the books. If you're taking it as a tax write-off for their calendar year, they have to be done with that by that point.
They're burying them in the desert out by Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Well, it's kind of like Warner Brothers with the Batgirl movie, that has
Mhm.
Michael Keaton in it, and I was looking forward to seeing Michael Keaton as Batman, and I would see it. I'd see that movie, and they wrote it off for, I guess, insurance purposes, saying it was unwatchable. So they shelved it, and then and part of that agreement for the write off is they cannot show it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Yep.
for a certain amount of time or something. I don't know, but they can't show it. So yeah, it's weird how this works.
So listener Diane is asking a question
Oh.
that a lot of people are asking. Do you think they would sell it to another service like Netflix or Amazon? And the answer is absolutely. Matter of fact, the Hageman brothers are actively encouraging people to keep up the Save Star Trek Prodigy campaign on Twitter. I've got some slides here. This is a whole campaign that they have going. This is from one of the other producers on the series, one of the other showrunners, talking about all the things you can do. And this is not, I want to make sure people are clear, this is not a campaign to get Star Trek Prodigy back on Paramount Plus, because that's not going to happen.
Well,
They took it as a tax write-off, but
mhm.
what will happen is that they're going to pitch this as a show that has 20 episodes that have been aired or streamed. They have 20 complete episodes because CBS Studios is paying for the completion, because that was the deal, completion of these additional 20 episodes. So any service that picks that up is not paying any production costs for 40 episodes of this show. So the idea is to keep Star Trek Prodigy visible, to do things like buy the DVDs to show the DVDs sell,
Right.
buy the merchandise, do the hashtags, have the avatars, everything possible while they're out negotiating for somebody else to buy this thing, to keep it visible.
Yeah, because the statement that I saw from Paramount, it did say that they were looking for a new home for both seasons of the show. So
Right. So that definitely, and I think some people are confused, thinking, oh, well, then Paramount will change their mind. No, Paramount is not going to change their mind. This is a business, and they ran their numbers and said, it's better to take this as a tax write-off. Now, we don't have access to their numbers, so we don't know between Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon, because remember, it had started streaming on Nickelodeon as well,
Yep.
or airing on Nickelodeon. We don't know what the numbers were. We don't know who was watching. We don't know if the audience was mostly adults. Was it a mixture when it showed up on Nickelodeon? Was it not watched on Nickelodeon by kids, but it was watched on Paramount Plus by adults, but in a smaller number? Because how many people do we know who have never gotten around to watching Prodigy because it was pitched as a show for kids?
yeah, well, as we all stated, I think it was pitched a little wrong, but yeah, you're right.
Yep. So that is I'm expecting it's going to go to some other network. I don't know whether it's going to be Netflix, Amazon. There are plenty of players out there. I think the ultimate irony would be if Disney Plus picked it up.
Oh,
Oh no, Star Wars versus Star Trek all over again. Well, I guess it never died.
I don't think they would necessarily do that because of that issue. But someone out there is going to pick this up, because it's very tempting to say you have Star Trek that people want exclusively, and including 20 episodes no one has ever seen before.
right.
That's right.
That's worth something.
Mm-hmm.
So time will tell. We'll keep you informed as this as the situation develops, as they say out there in television land.
Yes.
All right, so that was our big story. So I wanted to just make sure we got that one in before we went back to the review of the second episode. There was a story because, of course, we want to have some news out of Vulcan, Alberta, Canada. Unfortunately, there's no news about Star Trek related. I did, however, want to mention that the county council has declared an agricultural disaster for Vulcan County, and this is true because of the conditions there. They're going to have a lot of crops that aren't going to make it this year.
Wow.
In the county. So our thoughts are with everyone in Vulcan, Alberta, Canada, as they always are. We jest a bit, but we jest out of love for them. So we're hoping that things turn around. If anything if the weather can change and save some of the crops, and that would be a great bit of news to get. I'd love to be able to report that as much as anything else.
They need whales.
They do need whales, but I don't know how that would actually help. But yes, they need whales. I've got my mind is swirling over what that even means. But so that's our news out of Vulcan, Alberta, Canada. So our thoughts are definitely with them.
We're totally going there one day. You know that, right?
Yeah, we absolutely are. Absolutely are. Now, in addition to those couple of stories, we have an additional 35 stories over in the show notes over at The Topic is Trek.
Oh, finally get to do that.
.com.
That's right.
And you'll get stories broken out by classic TV series, what I'm calling streaming series and movies, because that wraps in the Section 31 movie, which is not theatrical. It's an event movie.
Musical.
Yeah. Musical.
Well, that's going to come later on.
It's a silent film.
We've got stuff about the motion picture series. We've got other media, including books, video games, comic books, more news about Paramount Plus, and a category that we don't often talk about that's in here called franchise wide and miscellaneous. That's if there's a story that covers more than one franchise, more than one series, I will lump that in there because it's not really necessarily just about, like, say, the original series or TNG. It's about both. I put it into that section at the bottom. So be sure you scroll all the way through if you want to get all the stories about Star Trek, because there are a bunch down there. We've got one in there like Who is Ro Laren? So that covers both The Next Generation and Picard.
Yep.
So there's stories in there from all different aspects of Trekdom. All right. So now, in the middle of the show comes my favorite part of the episode, and that's when I get to say, goodbye, Charlie.
I want to stay.
Nope.
It always feels so good. So good. All right. And now we're on to our second episode review. And Chuck, why don't you tell us all about this one?
Actually, I think that would be good in the musical. Listen to this.
I want to stay.
Yeah, that'll work.
He's right on beat. All right, main mission part 2. This is, of course, Strange New Worlds, season 2, episode 3. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
No, stop. Only 3.
Oh, like stay.
Yeah.
Just a little bit longer.
Hey!
I want to stay just a little bit. No, sorry.
You know how Clinton feels about singing in this song.
I know.
We can't afford it. We can't afford it.
That's right.
Well, written by David Reed. David serves as a consulting producer on Strange New Worlds, and this is their first script of the series. As with Dana Horgan, who wrote the last episode, David also wrote another episode entitled Lost in Translation that will premiere later this season. David has written for shows such as The Magicians, Aquarius, Supernatural, and Da Boys, which stars Carl Urban and Jack Quaid. This was directed by Amanda Rowe, and although this is Amanda Rowe's first time directing Star Trek, being born in Toronto was certainly an advantage for this assignment because Amanda's other directing credits include episodes of the show such as Nancy Drew, The 100, Doom Patrol, and Cloak and Dagger. So here's a short synopsis of what happened. La'an travels back in time to 21st century Earth to prevent an attack which will alter humanity's future history and bring her face to face with her own contentious legacy.
Very much indeed.
So we didn't even get to use the Guardian of Forever for this one.
No, where is Carl when you need him? All right, so let's begin at the beginning here. We get a segment at the very beginning of this episode that seems a little out of place with the rest of the episode. And that is what I'm basically referring to as a day in the life of Naan, because we
It's
see
an
her.
establishing shot or
Yes.
sequence.
Yeah, we see her, settling an argument or quelling some people having an argument about what got
See
lost
her
in the
diary,
transporter.
yeah.
We have her knocking on Spock's door saying, "Keep it down in there," with the music playing.
Bring, bring. What did he say? I will try to play with less
It's not enthusiastically. What?
vigor or something. Yeah, it was. How much noise can you make on that little thing?
Apparently enough to bother somebody else.
He's playing.
Who doesn't like their stuff ransacked? She's going through and searching.
He's playing some of the classical music of Metallica.
Oh, well, it's not time for heavy metal, I guess. Yeah, and we see that she's basically taken everything that Pelia has in storage, I guess, on the ship. She brought all this stuff with her when she wasn't a member of this crew until she decided herself she was going to be a member of this crew. And she then goes, and I'm going to bring all my stuff with me.
Just a few mementos.
Yeah, it's filling the entire corridor worth of stuff that she claims is definitely all hers, that she worked at the Museum of Antiquities or something of that name.
Yeah.
And that painting is definitely not stolen. So, that's mine. It's a fake type of thing. It seemed like this entire sequence was meant for one purpose only. And that was to get Pelia to say the words, "I even have a bunker in Vermont."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We go through that entire segment just to get that to happen.
And you know what? I missed it the first time because I was kind of I was more interested in the artifacts and the stories. Like, the Louvre is going to have to stop calling us or something. I didn't even hear that part the first time through and went, oh, there it is.
But then we get a tone shift because we see Naan sparring with Mbenga, and she's just wailing away. And Mbenga can clearly tell that she is definitely agitated and upset, but he can't offer her any advice because she's not hearing it. She's not having any of it.
Yep.
He tries as her doctor. He tries as her sparring partner, and it's not getting through.
So I have a thought on this. I mean, clearly, Naan has always had this issue of her last name and people associating her with her distant relative and treating her accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also wondering if she was upset that Una was able to clear her name and have that all put behind her. That she was now
On her own.
free and clear to
Oh.
just be herself.
Yeah.
And that was never going to happen. And this is kind of foreshadowing that was never going to happen for her, for Naan. That her name was her name, and she was just going to have to live with that.
Isn't it La'an?
Lawn. I keep saying lawn.
Yeah, it's an L.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Lots of names I've been
Long
going
week.
through today on the long week.
Have you seen this show, Clinton?
Yeah, once or twice. Once or twice. I apologize that I've been.
It's Star Trek, not Star Wars.
Oh boy.
Oh, let me make that note too.
If you do the math, all the names in that family have to rhyme with Khan anyway. So there's John.
You know what's funny is the other day I
Ron.
was telling this guy I did a Star Trek podcast, and he goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "You into Star Trek?" He says, "No, not really. I'm more into Star Wars." I'm like, why does everybody immediately go there?
Because
They want to get you going.
no, it's because they both have
No, I
star
don't
in
think he had
the,
a clue.
they
He didn't
star
have,
in the name of both of them. That's pretty.
yeah,
much
they're
why.
both take place in space.
All right. So you guys check me if I don't know why I've got
Do a
on and there's
search
so
and
much,
replace.
yeah, pretty much. So keep on top of me if I'm on this stuff. Um, all right. So she's having her issues, but then suddenly, while in the corridor, something mysterious happens. There's a bit of a light
Flash.
shift,
Yeah, a show of not really sure what happened.
and this gentleman dressed in a gray suit comes stumbling out from somewhere. I'm not sure whether there's a room there or just a wall, and collapses to the floor. Lon realizes that he's been shot.
By
It's
a
not a phaser.
bullet.
Yeah. And he says that there has been a future, what is it? There's been a future incident and that it has to be corrected. He hands her a device that has a pop-up screen, a floating screen. We see a graphic,
Mhm.
and he says, "You have to take this to the bridge," and then dies.
Yeah.
I
And
was
disappears.
really hoping that would be revealed to be Gary 7.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought so for a second, but yeah.
yeah, we find out ultimately that he's a temporal agent, though.
Hey, by the way, I did read an article that mentioned that this was the same uh, TSAR's computer interface as the USS Relativity and Voyager, and they
Hmm.
had a screenshot, and it's exactly the same kind of interface. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, not only that, jumping ahead to the end, but at the end of the episode, when the other agent flashes this up, I went into Photoshop and I overlaid them. It's the same readout. So I'm trying to figure out what that display is showing him because he's talking about the incident. Now, the incident hasn't happened yet, and he's seeing a display that theoretically, because it's the same one as the end, is pre-split of the timeline. But we
I
never see this graphic with it. If that's true, we never see it with things out of sync.
that diagonal thing with dots running back and forth reminded me a lot of the displays they showed on Deep Space Nine.
I was thinking more like that's what Doc Brown was drawing in Back to the Future.
Well, I think that the
Flux
line,
capacitor?
No, the timeline, and then it skews, and
yeah, I
Doc
think
work-
the line is supposed to show time itself, and you've got slight splinters off the side of it
like divergent
along the way.
points or something.
Right, and then there's a
This is where I
curved line.
decided to have cream in my coffee rather than black.
Oh, there's another universe.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, so Lon decides to say, okay, I've got to take this to the bridge. I'm not sure what's going on here, but let's go to the bridge.
Captain
And
don't know what to do.
Oh, then we see
Captain-
Kirk and Spock. Sort of.
yeah, well, first we see Kirk, and that's kind of a surprise. She doesn't even know who it is.
I think this whole story could have worked without Kirk. We didn't need to introduce Kirk yet in this series.
Well, I feel like this is part of this is like act
Kirk-like.
one of something.
It's Kirk-like.
Right.
something-
And when we get to the end of the show, you'll find that there's a tie back.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
So
Thanks.
yeah, so well, I think that this is also what Kirk is able to do is it's someone that even though he's not from the same timeline, he's close enough that when she discovers that he has no knowledge of Noonien Singh being anything,
Right.
and she has no baggage as far as he is concerned with that name,
Kind of liberating.
right, that this is it's a shift for her and it's going to affect her in the end of this thing, that he's there to be that person that you can feel like this is someone who sees me for who I am, even though they are from essentially a variant of my own time period in the future.
Yours?
Yes, of mine. No, not of mine. Of her timeline. So it's a connection there that is very necessary to having her realize what that feels like and what she's going to have to give up ultimately in over the course of this episode. So I think that it was, whether or not it had to be Kirk, I don't know, but it had to be somebody from her time period that traveled with her, because if no one knew her name when she's back there before anything ever happened, then well, that's the same with everybody. No one knows it, but this is somebody from the future who doesn't know it.
All I could
You've
think
heard-
of was Dr. Horrible's song about a brand new day. And the sun is high, the birds are singing that you're all going to die.
Okay. All right.
All right. So Kirk, first of all, he says, it sucks to be you, Spock. And we can't help you because we're already having our own problems with the Romulans.
Hey, and then there was that awkward silence where they're like, like, go ahead and cut it off now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here's Spock all going like, well, I think as you humans are fond of saying, I'm going to like schmooze the humans. And he goes, nope, having none of it. You're on your own. But we do find out an important piece of information there is that they have their own problems with the Romulans. And that's an important point to make for several reasons as well down the line. Because if you don't catch that part, some other things are going to be a little, what's going on here? So we get that as a piece of information. And she tries to convince Kirk that she's from an alternate timeline. And Kirk is all, yeah, sure. Or you're crazy.
I thought it was funny. Excuse me, my throat's going out. I thought it was interesting where he turns around and says, who the hell are you and why are you on my ship? And he's staring at her and they go to a commercial, break. When they come back, no time has changed. He's still staring at the door. It's like he's been waiting for her to answer since during the commercial break.
And
That's why I don't have commercials.
And he didn't. But you have that. You still have that kind of like fade out, fade in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
you
he
can tell
didn't
that's
move a beat. He's just like,
but he also doesn't notice immediately that she doesn't have the same insignia on her uniform because United Earth has kind of an upside down diamond shaped insignia for their uniforms, and she's still got the Delta shield, which I think would be kind of quite like, and what is that supposed to be that's on your uniform type of thing? Funny, I could ask you the same thing.
It's a butterfly.
Now, Kirk tries to take the device away from her to have the engineers study it, which leads to boom!
New York.
Yeah, New York in the early 21st century. Well, you got the 21st century.
Mid 21st century. Yep.
Yeah, he got that. Yeah, that's good. But
I'm
unfortunately, they're in
freezing my
Toronto.
asteroids off.
That's right.
Yeah, it turns out that we find out at this point that the reason that Kirk doesn't recognize New York is because in his timeline, Earth is pretty much a ruin. It's just
he wasn't even born on Earth.
Right.
He's born in space. He's never been to Earth. Like, whoa, okay,
Right.
this is a whole new timeline here. I was starting to get unwrapped going, but oh wait, different timeline.
I did think it was funny
possible.
they referenced like a USS Iowa is where he was born. Trying to keep with canon there.
Yeah. So they have to figure out how to blend in while they're trying to figure out how they're going to fix the timeline, because clearly they don't go back just by pressing the button again, as Kirk does like 30 times in a row.
It's been disabled.
You think he's on an elevator trying to close the door faster?
I said up, up.
Yeah. And then she accused him of, you broke it. What?
Did not. And they do what I like to term larceny in the name of history.
Yeah, a little light shoplifting, of course.
Yeah. After we go through an episode of Who Wore It Best when they come out
I
of the
thought
changing rooms.
that was a clever way of getting out while the alarm was going off. You plant some socks or something in the poor lady's purse, and then they won't
Oh.
notice us.
You haven't done that before? Wait, maybe-
Tell us more, Craig.
No, but I heard I had a friend who did that.
you heard?
Yeah.
Yes, right. I had a
Yeah,
friend.
he
that-
lives in Canada. Oh, darn, this takes place in Canada. Never
Yeah.
mind. But they say, well, we can't use that strategy anymore. We've got to come up with some other way to get money because people use money for everything. And Kirk hustles himself some chess.
Because
Yeah.
that's a quick way to make money. You know how long a chess game takes?
I thought he was going to play Fizbin.
Well, if he's really good at it, the game might not take all that long. He might be over in like 5 moves for
Yeah,
all we know.
This,
In the
this,
in the
This
park, they're
basic-
like, "What the hell's Fizbin?"
I love how he rips on it. He goes, this old-fashioned 2D chess. There's nothing to it.
Yeah,
For amateurs.
and that's yeah.
We don't find out exactly how much money they make. However, I'm going to get to that in 1 second.
Yeah.
With a technical problem as well. But the first thing that they do is he spends some money on hot dogs.
Right. Because you got to eat.
Well, and that's true to Kirk. And like, oh, is it any place to get something to eat? I'm starving when they're stuck on Genesis. So
That's
clearly his stomach, lead with your stomach and then the rest will follow. I figure that he wants the hot dog because he's now back in some place that's of ancient mystical times and he wants to
Partake.
partake of everything that
Yeah.
it has to offer.
Including Lon.
Oh, snap. Stop that. But after
That's
they
Kirk.
get the hot dogs, they
No matter what timeline it is, it's
It's
Kirk.
Kirk.
it's still Kirk. Yeah, gotta admit it. Okay. there
Wait,
goes
wait, let's go shoplift you some green face makeup.
that. Yeah. No. Let's not do that. But my question is, all right, they have money. They have money enough for 3 hot dogs and more. So they stay in a hotel. They don't stay in a 2-part question. They don't stay in a cheap hotel.
They stay
stay
on
in a
one right on the river so they can see
Very expensive.
the
Yeah.
bridge getting
hotel.
blown up. Yeah, how much money did they get out of that chess game?
I know.
Second point is you cannot check into a hotel, especially one like that, without a credit card on file.
That's exactly what my wife said. I was like, "Yeah, that's right. Good point."
So
Then Kirk reveals like, hey, why should I do anything? You're going to wipe out my timeline. I should do nothing.
Hey, the way things are nowadays, they could have applied for a credit card and got it within minutes.
well, maybe that's what they did. Instant acceptance.
That's
As
right.
soon as they showed up on the planet, they had 4 things in their mailbox for credit
Yeah.
card applications.
That's right.
Sorry, I brought my communicator. It's still so full of spam now. But
Yeah.
yeah. Then so they're in this. This is the modest. For those of you watching the video, this is the modest hotel room that they got for the money. That's like I could never afford a hotel room like this. It's got a common space the size of a house.
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
balcony that's half the size of the house.
It looks like in a big apartment. Yeah.
Now that I'm looking at this, though, you've got that long set of windows.
Yeah.
You think this is the same set that was also Cthulhu's office? the same
I think she was up
location?
higher. She was probably same building up higher.
Well, he was because he went on a walkway, which is right outside their window, to get to the building, and the windows were all CGI'd in,
Okay.
right? So I think
Maybe.
this is the same set.
You have
From
to
the
see
other
if-
angle.
You have to see if those steps are right in front of the windows.
Yeah, so I'll go.
Yeah,
I'll
'cause
go
it
back
would
and
have
check
been on
that
the
and
other wall. Shooting across.
I'll report back
Cool.
on the possibility of that being the case. All
All
right, but they're having this conversation, and Kirk is not wrong that they're having this argument about, well, who's to say yours is the timeline that needs to be saved? If I stay here and do nothing, my timeline stays intact and I live.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of hard to argue with. So, Lon brings out all the points about, well, in our future, we don't just live on 3 little planets. We are part of a federation with other species, and we are explorers in the galaxy. And by the way, we have sunsets
Yeah.
on
Admire.
our Earth.
Yeah.
like
we're
she's
not
rubbing
just
it in.
we're not just surviving, we're living is kind of the point she was making.
Mm-hmm.
But she
I
brings
think she
home
was
the
rubbing
point.
it in.
Yeah, she brings home the point in a way that, because I think those other arguments were like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. But she brings up the point that Sam is alive
Oh yeah.
in her universe, and that like he freezes at that point because apparently he's dead.
Yep.
In his timeline. So we get that moment of recognition, but no time to dwell on that because the bridge explodes
Which is
Right
lucky they had that room.
right
Yeah.
outside their window.
I did like that transition because it showed them talking to each other, and then all of a sudden you see the reflection of the explosion, which was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way they did it.
And it was the Lake Ontario Bridge, which apparently one of its purposes was to be a peace bridge, to be an international project, to be a symbol of trying to unite humanity. And this is why it becomes a problem for some certain species
Mm-hmm.
who wants to get rid of it. So it is blown up, and NCIS, Kirk and Lon head over to the scene.
Star Trek NCIS.
They need Scott Bakula to come in at some point to help out with this. And they're looking, and Lon notices that there's something weird about one of the pieces of debris, but it gets put into a van really quickly, and she didn't get a good enough look at it. So they call over a photographer who's just happened to be snapping pictures and ask if they can see. Well, she says, I need to see a picture on your camera. And Kirk says, please. She meant to say, please, can she see the picture?
Yes, right.
So the photographer is happy enough to oblige, shows the picture, and then apparently zoom in is no longer a thing one says in the future.
In the future, right.
Enhance. Zoom and enhance.
But we do get zoomed in, and
I could see that. I mean, if you went back a couple hundred years and had to try communicating with people in, even in American Revolutionary times, the language would be sufficiently different that you'd have a few stumbling points.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that they don't have more of them is,
Go read some literature like from even the late 1800s. Was it Scientific America? It was was an old magazine, and I was reading it online, and I was like, I recognize these words, but the way they're using them is just.
You might as well be reading Shakespeare. What is
thou,
Lord, over thine own? It's like, yikes.
It was something like that. I was like, what? It's hard to make sense.
Okay, so this image, this zoomed in and enhanced, because clearly when she zooms all the way in, it's not pixelated. So her camera is enhancing as well when she zooms in.
It's like a super duper bazillion megapixel camera. And she had a good zoom lens on it.
Yeah. And she's a Romulan. Oh, spoiler.
Oh!
So, yeah. So they recognize, Lon recognizes as photonic bomb residue.
They don't say that right away to the photographer lady.
No. They walk away saying, "Oh, thank you for your help." And they realize they have to get a good look at that evidence, but a van is taking it away.
So what do? You got to get yourself a vehicle, and in a pinch, you do a pinch. So
which I refer to as the Fast and Future Furious.
He gets a transformer.
He gives a citizen a Vulcan neck pinch that he learned from a cellmate, was it?
His cellmate in a
Denobulan prison.
And it can also make toilet plumbing soup.
I can make plumbing soup in a toilet.
So I got that going for me.
Yeah, you can have all you want.
I like to think it was prison ain't so bad. You can make sangria in the toilet.
Now, I got a question for you guys. I have not had a chance to look this up to see if anybody's got theories about it, but they make a point of showing you the license plate, which means the license plate has some significance.
Right.
Now, 86 is when The Voyage Home came out. So that's Star Trek. It's Next Generation was the next year. 89. So I don't know if it's referring to a date, if it could have no significance at all, but usually you don't focus that much on the license plate unless you want it seen.
Mhm.
Right.
So
I don't know. I was trying to figure out what that meant too, but I didn't make any sense to me.
So
I think they did it just to make the nerds curious.
Well, I'll be interested to find out if it actually does mean something in reference to Trek or this episode.
Well,
but yeah,
86 also means to get rid of something.
yeah, that's true. And apparently Kirk is real bad and then gets real good at driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Nearly backs up into something else. And then 2 seconds later, it reminded me, I just watched Earthquake from 1974, and it had like this automatic transmission that automatically went forward or backwards, whatever. Like, really? Well, that never happened.
Well, that's the future timeline that the earthquake destroyed.
Don't ever take Charlton Heston's vehicle. That's my point.
No. I'll tell you something else that was funny is that you can tell they filmed this over several days because there was snow. There was no snow. It was snowing, and then there was no snow. I'm like, make up your mind.
Yeah, I'm sure they're all thinking, great. The one time we want it to snow in Toronto.
Yeah, that's right.
And it doesn't. Ugh. But this chase is not enough to occupy our two passengers, or our driver and our passenger, because they're having a back and forth about Kirk's middle name and his brother's full name and how pompous and ridiculous this all is. But that's when we get the realization, when Lon gets the realization that Noonien Singh means nothing to Kirk.
That's right. Yep.
And
Like-
she just,
Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, she's dumbstruck because that would be the first time in her life that meant nothing to somebody.
Like the Scarlet Letter or the Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kidding you. I know these things.
I know who author is.
It-
and the
by,
Bible.
by the way, we were joking about Kirk driving or not knowing how to driving. You know, he first put this car in reverse. He did that also in TOS. You know, remember he went backwards right at first trying to drive.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, you have historically bad luck with first getting into the vehicle in Star Trek, because when Archer and T'Pol get into the vehicle, they're going to borrow in the episode where they go back. What was the name of the episode? Something Street.
Carbon Creek one?
No. That's because that's not T'Pol. Something Street. People out there screaming at their listening devices. I'm sorry. I know what it is.
Wait, you said people. You think we have more than one that listens to
I
this
do.
stuff?
But he turns on the radio and it's full blast, a commercial for, like Sunday.
That's
He
right.
has to figure out how to shut it off. So historically, getting into the vehicle is the worst part for someone from the future in Star Trek, and then they pick it up right away.
I believe there was a device known as a clutch, Captain.
Clutch cargo? No, not clutch
Not
cargo.
that. Creepy.
All right, so they're chasing after the van and doing a very good job of it. Kirk is fishtailing and weaving between traffic and everything, but then they come up to this kind of roadblock. The van makes a corner, and Kirk is trying to.
He's all of a sudden familiar with every street in Toronto.
Yeah, he's trying to keep up, and they pass by a police officer who then joins the merry chase, and they get stopped. Well, the van gets away. They get stopped, and Kirk is put in handcuffs. It's about to be carted off until Oh, look, that crazy, wacky photographer
lady.
comes along to help them get out of their fix that they're in. So this definitely becomes a case of this crazy person who we know is the Romulan. Later on, we find that out. Well, in the respect that she clearly has the long game all planned out of how
Yeah.
this is going to go down. As soon as she identifies that that's Kirk.
I thought
And-
I thought the cops kind of gave up a little easy. It's like, oh,
Well,
there's a
Hey, wait a
sale at 7-Eleven. Let's go, guys.
Chuck, you're familiar with U.S. cops? These are Canadian.
they're very, they apologized for doing anything, and
We're sorry. We're sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're not going to
Sorry.
tell me, eh? You're going to delete that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a continuity thing. Listener to Dan says, you never see them take the cuffs off Kirk.
No, but you hear it. I think I heard it. I recognize that same thing, but you can hear them kind of, jingling as they're walking off. But yeah, you never
Now-
see it. Yeah.
Now,
I got to back up a bit. He said he didn't have a phaser, a tricorder, or a communicator.
well, he didn't have any devices of any kind.
When are you ever on the Enterprise without a communicator? Or did that magic zappy button that brought him to the past leave the communicator behind?
I don't think you necessarily have to have your communicator with you when you're on
Only
the ship.
TNG
You
they
had
did.
it on the bridge. You said you had a picture of him wearing the upside down diamond thing. All they did is walk to the next room.
Yeah, but that's
Where
not a
the communicator?
communicator. That's a badge.
Yeah, back in TOS
That's not a
era.
commu-
That's
that's not- Those
But
are
that's
not
not
communicator.
communicators.
Oh, back in TOS times, you're right. Badgers? We don't need no stinking badgers.
that's right.
So they can tap that all they want. It's as broken as the button because it's never going to work. It's just a piece of metal.
About as effective as the one I wear on the cruise.
So the photographer at this point, I say, she's clearly pulling the strings because she lays out at the beginning of their conversation after she's
They're
rescued them.
Aliens.
Well, she says they want to destroy the bridge. And she talks about how the fact that that's a symbol of unity.
Mhm.
And this is, something to, keep people
Slow
off,
down their progress to
well,
space.
well, no, to basically keep them like fighting with each other, all this type of stuff. And that there's a cold fusion reactor nearby. So all this stuff, she's just laying it out saying, here are the breadcrumbs I want you to follow.
Yeah.
Well, she's doing it in a way that anyone else on this planet would think she's a whack job. Right.
And Lon thinks she is. And, I think Kirk doesn't necessarily believe her per se, but feels like she's someone who believes in this, and she's ultimately right that there are aliens and that, they will visit Earth and so forth. So she needs some validation of that fact that maybe that's true. So they're both kind of buying into it or not buying into it for different reasons, but none of it is correct.
Right.
And then the photographer goes and says, look, you guys aren't quite getting it, what I'm laying out for you here. So here, let
a bit
me
more.
show you a picture of a Romulan bird of prey. Okay.
This is my personal ship.
First contact day is in 39 years, 279 days, 3 hours, 50 minutes. Yeah. If they'd used my countdown app, they'd know exactly when the aliens are getting here.
Mm,
Oh, you're like in the future.
yeah, man. It's weird.
Just got to watch the movies.
So she's definitely saying, follow the clues I'm giving you to make this happen. Do I have to draw you a map?
She should have just handed them a tricorder at that point.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of food, I like Kirk's excitement over the poutine.
It's got gravy?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Kirk in his stomach again.
All right. So they're going to need an engineer who can figure out a way how to detect the cold fusion reactor. And of course, neither of them took any engineering in Starfleet. They were out that week, that semester, apparently.
Yeah.
I know one. She mentioned it in the beginning of the show. Where did
Yeah.
you find her? I hope she's in today.
So they have to travel all the way from Toronto to Vermont.
And my
Just
first thought was, how did they
Vermont.
get across the border without passports? And then they quickly resolved that by saying we bribed.
Bribe somebody. And when they couldn't figure out exactly where she was, well, the person in the Apple store taught them how to use DuckDuckGo.
I love that line.
That was funny.
Yeah, because they travel to Vermont, and lo and behold, there is Pelia in her, museum of antiquities that's completely above board and not shady at all. And they need entry. So Lon says, I know who you are and I know your secret. So Pelia
Actually,
has
I
to
thought it
look
was
in it.
kind of interesting. At first, she said, I know a person. And I was like, who in the world would she know? And then, of course, I should have guessed. It didn't dawn on me right at first.
So I refer to this as time's other arrow because you don't have, no one knows Guinan, but Pelia, that's close enough.
Yeah. That's right.
But much to their dismay, this Pelia is the same as them. She's never taken any engineering courses.
Oops.
So what's the point of going here?
Well,
I mean, she does point them in the right direction by, talking about the phosphorus on the watch.
The dive watches in the 80s had tritium in them. And someone went to great lengths to figure this part out because yes, they did.
They did. Matter of fact,
I
was kind of surprised because Lon breaks open the dial. So she's exposing herself to some of that radiation.
Oh, no, it had already decayed. The half-life, they said the half-life had already decayed.
Oh, because
it didn't glow anymore.
I thought they were still, even though they don't glow, I thought they were still, I mean, in the real world, I thought that those watches were still a bit, iffy to have.
Radium did. Tritium, no.
Okay.
Because there's the old story of the women who worked at the radium watch dial company, and they would paint the radium on, and they'd lick the paintbrushes to keep the tips nice and sharp, so they get the numbers nice and crisp. And of course, they were ingesting radium. Good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, so they
taste like pineapple.
Yeah, they hightail it back to Toronto at that point and begin walking the streets of the city.
Hey, I bet you $20. I bet you that they had to use some of that cash he wanted to buy gas too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I thought she popped the crystal off of that watch just a little too easy.
Well, it was a cheap watch.
Wouldn't you have to pop the crystal from the inside anyway?
Probably.
If you take the dial, you have to remove the dial. Probably just
you take the inside out and then get to the crystal.
Right, but she smashed it and just kind of did it from that. I think that's what you did. I think she smashed it over.
No, she's just like pop and it's out. Like, no, you don't go in from the top. Okay. Anyway, moving on to the streets of Toronto again.
So they're trying to get the watch to glow to tell them where the cold fusion reactor is, and they're having their conversations and talking about timelines and what's going to happen when this is all resolved. And Luan is thinking, well, you could come back with me because I brought you here. This maybe could bring you back, and it just doesn't seem like that's the way it's going to happen. And then some romance,
some hot fusion.
Yeah,
some hot fusion happens.
Must have been that poutine got him in the mood.
It's so much hot fusion that the watch glows.
It's Kirk.
It's Kirk.
He's the fusion reactor.
Oh my! Oh
my! Is right.
Ooh, it's somewhere around here. Awkward.
But they do find it. It's at the Noonien Singh Institute for Cultural Advancement. In the basement of that building.
Yep.
Why didn't they just call it the Sung Institute for all?
Well, because that's a different thing.
Different branch of evil science.
You mean sing?
Sing Sung.
Sing whatever.
Sing
correcting Kirk.
Sing out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go inside and Lon realizes that she can use her hand to open up the doorway in because it apparently is reading DNA.
Because that's the way security systems work.
Well,
That one
again,
might. Yeah.
again, I don't know whose security system it is at that point. But well, it can't be the Romulans because then
It's a
the
Sing.
photographer could get right in. Right. It's got to be the Noonien Sung's.
No, the photographer couldn't get in.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that they can't
Oh.
be Romulan technology that is the basis of the DNA passcode to get inside. But it does recognize her, and they're going to go inside, but the photographer shows up, and Kirk pulls a brilliant ploy to say, well, you can't shoot us because if you shoot that gun, then it's going to set
The
off the
alarms are gonna
alarms.
go off.
You've
Yeah.
and
never been
everything's
to
gonna get
Earth,
locked
have you?
down, and
Yeah.
bang.
He says, "Try me." Okay. Someone called his bluff finally.
So he gets shot, which is always to me, it's always the danger. You say, yeah, go ahead. I dare you. Okay. I got the gun. I might as well do it.
I thought that was the point where Lon was just going to get out that aggression that she had earlier in the show and kick some Romulan booty.
Well, she tries, but gets
After.
grabbed by the neck. Right.
Yeah, after. I thought she was going to kick it while she had the gun pointed at Kirk. Don't you be messing with my boyfriend.
Mm.
I was-
Yeah.
I was kind of half expecting him to do the, oh my,
Oh, the faint.
No.
for, off Generations.
No, but
Kirk.
instead he says, say hello to Sam for me.
Oh,
I was expecting him to go, oh my.
Mm.
Isn't that what Kirk said in Generations?
Yes.
the ship out of danger.
You saved the ship. You saved us all.
Yes, you saved us all.
We are all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. Hope
Yeah.
you're enjoying this.
I think we should
All
move
right.
along. I think
Okay. So,
Catching the references because we're like we're keeping the show short at an hour and 42.
all right.
Yeah.
So now again, why only one news story? Now we get to the part where you've got to be paying attention to what's going on here because, and I'm not even sure if I've got it all correct. If I'm understanding this correctly, what the Romulans have been doing are little things here and there to slow down humanity's progress.
Mhm.
Right?
All right. And that blowing up the bridge happened again this time around, which apparently it happens in both the timelines. So that
Right. That's a common point.
that happens in both cases. So now the photographer is getting fed up with these little ditzy things that like the other Romulans don't realize, I think she's kind of saying they don't realize how much these humans are attempting to get together. We've got to take this to the next level to put an end to all this.
So she
So-
was supposed to blow up the
Right.
reactor,
Right.
which
She was
was
supposed-
in Kirk's timeline, but instead she
Right,
does
because she's now
blow up
locked
the
out.
ship.
Because
Okay.
she's locked out of, she can't get in there now. So
Yep.
she's going with her plan B, which an algorithm essentially has told her this plan B is what you need to do now to basically put an end to humanity ever going to the stars.
What did she type into ChatGPT? As a Romulan, I would like to.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, she started typing actually into Word, and Clippy said, I see you want to stop humanity from forming the Federation. Would you like
Mhm.
help with that? So the plan now is to kill Khan Noonien Singh so that Earth never unites post eugenics wars.
Right.
So they get as far as the door to Khan's office. We're not sure. I mean, we see
Apartment?
the name,
Yeah. It looked like a locker for a minute.
and Lon says, "No, this is not going to happen." And then they fight, and then all that aggression comes out from Lon, and she shoots the Romulan and kills the Romulan.
And then the Romulan presses a button as she's dying and vaporizes.
And
Which would be dramatic for a little. Oh,
Well,
Did I
before
say
she
that?
goes, though, one of the things she's pointed out in her diatribe about humanity is that, and this whole Khan thing was supposed to happen in 1992, but because of all these, temporal wars, I've been stuck here for 30 years waiting for that to happen.
Whoa, did we just screw with the timeline? Weren't
So,
the eugenics wars like in the late 1990s?
well, they were in the 1990s, which she said that was supposed to happen
Yeah.
in 1992. So she's saying that the temporal wars, because we've always had this thing about, all right, clearly we in the real world are past the 90s.
Yeah.
So we have a divergence from the Star Trek timeline, if you will.
Yes.
So this is kind of resetting the eugenics wars to now take place
in the future.
in the mid to late 21st century. Okay. So that's the way I was reading that. All right. So that, again, trying to keep track of all this stuff going on. But she disappears and Lon has to decide what to do. So she enters Khan's room and notices there's children's drawings all over the place.
Hey, by the way, I know you're getting ready to describe this a little bit
Mhm.
more, but there's a spot in this whole scene that I just couldn't get past, but I want to see
Okay.
if you recognize it as well. But go ahead.
Okay.
Well,
maybe-
it could be a grown-up man who just can't draw very well.
Well, that's beside the point. So she hears a rustling as she's looking around all these drawings and so forth, and sees a little boy
Mm-hmm.
come up from behind the bed and says, are you going to hurt me?
Are you here to kill me or something?
Yeah. And she,
Take me away. He said, "Take me away."
okay. And she realizes who it is
Mm-hmm.
and that he's just a little boy at this point. And, everything is racing through her head at that point because she has an opportunity here that she feels she can't take. She asks, are there any others? And he points over to the photo. You clearly see some of the other members of the eugenics
Mhm.
experiment
Yep.
that are there. So it's all laid out for her. And she doesn't do it because if she realizes if she kills,
If she changes anything, her
Then-
timeline is gone again. She can't go home.
well, not only that she can't go home, but there will be no Federation.
Yeah.
So she is making the sacrifice, and it's a bitter sacrifice to make because she is essentially condemning a lot of the world to absolute misery by making this decision.
Right.
Well,
So-
she does have a turning point when she's arguing with the Romulan just before the fight breaks out. And it was like one of these "who do you think you are" moments, and she says, "I am Lon Noonien Singh." Yeah, and she admits it. It's like for a moment there you think, I'm proud of who I am. I'm going to wear
Yeah.
this badge.
Hey, by the
But-
way, listener Diane says she mentions that there was a similar plot point in Doctor Who where the Doctor encounters her longtime enemy Davros, creator of the Daleks, as a small boy, and had a similar moment with him.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's kind of one of these moments where, it's not one of these cases of, well, what if I, killed Hitler as a child?
Right.
Because you're the future beyond the incidents. You absolutely know it for certainty what those incidents are. And you're making that decision to all of that is going to happen or all of that is not going to happen.
Yep.
So it's a pretty tough choice to make, but she makes it.
I
And
thought the actors played this well because you could
Mhm.
feel those thoughts going through with like, could I, would I, should I, what if, I better
Yeah.
not. It was you were there for the ride at that moment.
Mhm.
All right. So
She
Did
resolves
you-
it and goes back. Yes.
yeah, did you okay? So
Oh,
did
yes.
you
You're going to
notice
say
the-
the point.
yeah, did you notice the odd choice? I guess it's more of a continuity piece, maybe a little bit.
Of
I'll spell it out.
okay.
Lon has the pistol or the weapon in her hand, goes in the
Yes.
room, sets it on his computer at his desk, talks to him for a minute, and then leaves. She left the gun in the room.
A loaded gun with a child. That's good.
She never. I was like, is she not going to pick that back up? No, she's walking out.
It's a souvenir. Well, hopefully the shells were all spent. Let's
Sure.
think positively. Maybe that's what the deal was. You know, there were 2 bullets in the chamber, and they were all used up
Or that
Jesus.
was the first weapon that Khan
in the
wielded.
cartridge, I should say.
He's a smart.
That was the first weapon that Khan yielded.
Yeah. I
Wielded.
told you they don't use it. We didn't use axes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So she returns to her own timeline and is visited by the temporal agent who says, "Thanks for your service."
You protected the
smile on her face.
timeline.
Yeah.
And just was
Yeah,
very, 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 very stone faced with smile on her face, just kind of like showing no emotion whatsoever. Just where I'm going to leave now, and you'll
we have our
never speak
toys
to
back?
this to anyone ever again. And I feel like she's had this conversation many a time. by
Oh,
this
yeah.
point.
Ha, many a time.
Ah, but yeah, see, this graphic is exactly the same graphic
Yeah.
that was at the
It's-
beginning. So, but I think also the button is green
It's green when you're
the
ready to
other-
travel.
when the other agent pulled the device out, and it turned red after the button was pushed, which I guess
Mhm.
means that they're going into the split of the timeline.
Yeah.
And when they come back, it's now back to green again. So that could possibly be what that
Green
means. Oh,
means go.
yeah, green means A-OK.
That's right.
So all this is as if this wasn't enough of emotional baggage for Lon, because she can't discuss this with anyone. She almost out of instinct places a call to Kirk.
Good thing he
Yeah.
was home.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't home. He was on duty, I'm
Somewhere.
assuming.
He's working.
On a space
So
station.
you get the feeling that she wanted to see his face, but she also possibly, do you know who I am? And do
Yeah.
you recognize me? And he clearly doesn't. And she has to give up some fake story about, well, I'm checking
I need
on
Sam's
information.
birthplace
Yeah.
for security records.
Yeah, that type of thing. So it just
FaceTimed him.
tears her apart.
She
at that point.
FaceTimed him.
Yeah, essentially she did.
Yeah.
Because she knows how to use DuckDuckGo. But
Where was he born? Oh, same place as me, Riverdale, Iowa. Wow, the history's been changed because I left that gun.
oh
Yeah.
no. Then as we pull back, now what do you guys make of the thing they clearly want you to see when this episode
The
finishes?
watch.
The watch sitting on the furniture.
Yeah. It's now an antique. So
Well, I noticed that the temporal agent didn't ask for it, whether they didn't realize she had it.
and it was on her wrist at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It was right there. So
So there's something, I think that watch is going to come back, which is said, the whole thing with Kirk. I think that was part 1. And
So
we've yet
I
to get
wanna
to
know,
part 2.
does Pelia remember her? And go,
Yeah.
Where's my watch?
Yeah. You broke it. You happy now? You didn't pay for it either.
Stole it
Hey.
200 years ago.
and
Well, I'm wondering if she recognizes her or not, because that is a long time to have passed.
yeah.
You'd
was the-
remember an encounter like that.
What it's going to it'd be interesting if later on in another episode, well, we can get out of this situation. We only had a little tritium.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I got some in my room.
Screep.
I can't get the glass off.
Oh, I can't put it back on again. It needs to be on now. Oh no, I broke
Right.
it. Oh, problems. All right, time travel. It's always fun.
Yeah.
They did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow?
No, I can't think anything else. I think we said it all in a couple hours.
You could make
Okay.
a musical about Little Orphan Annie about that song.
The sun will come out. Put something else
Yeah.
in there. It's fine. All right.
Yeah.
So let's go back up. Well, how about on divers watches? 1 to 10 divers watches. So you start us off, Chuck.
1 to 10 divers watches on this one. I thought it was a fun story. I still, you can speculate what you want about Kirk coming back and that relationship. I think this could have worked equally well with somebody else on the bridge. Now, would the fans have liked it as much? I don't know, but it just couple of cracks in the story, as you pointed out. But overall, I liked it. I'm going to give it an 8.5.
All righty. What about you, Craig?
I liked the type of time travel story that we got. I thought it was a little different than normal, kind of thing. And so I enjoyed it. I think it was a little slow and drug in some places. So the pacing was a little weird at times. And I was like, well, you just kind of get on it, like watching each other sleep, kind of like, let's move along. But overall, I liked it. But I'm going to get it an 8.
Okay. And I'm going to go with an 8 as well on this one. I felt like the last act was the strongest. And it was set up well in the beginning part, but I felt like the beginning part had some major issues. First of all, I felt like the part at the beginning, as I stated up front, with a day in the life of La'an, was all tacked on there just to get one line of dialogue
Yep.
in, and that this episode ran over an hour. So
Yeah, that's right.
it's the other thing I didn't like was Kirk's shift of tone as soon as they get to Earth in the past. He goes from the captain of the ship in command and, having the discussion to being a blathering idiot, just pressing the button over and over and over again on the device.
Ooh, hot dog.
And gets hot dogs and doesn't notice the anything about the debris from the bridge or.
I had
all
a
this
note
other
on my
stuff.
notes as well. It says, I'm not enjoying Kirk as an idiot.
Yeah, I feel like we've now seen 2 versions of Kirk from this actor that are admittedly not the Kirk we're supposed to know. And whether this is intentional to be able to draw those distinctions when we finally get there, I don't know, because first was in the season finale of season 1, where he's from the alternate timeline, where he's still on the hood and Pike is on the Enterprise. And this one where he's from a diverged timeline where he's on the Enterprise, but it's not the Federation. There is no such thing as the Federation in his future. So, and he's lost his brother and he's never visited Earth. So he's clearly a different person. But at some point, you have to see Kirk. And I don't mean they have to do an impression of Shatner because, Chris Pine was not always doing an impression of Shatner, but you have to be the person in charge. And I know it's tough to have 2 people that want to be in charge, between La'an and Kirk. That can be its own problem. But he sometimes just felt too much the idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And maybe you can write some of that off as alternate timeline. He had a different upbringing. He's going to have different character traits.
I will give, on a side note, also, I think Christina Chong deserves a lot of credit because she was very strong in this whole episode.
Oh,
absolutely.
Wonderful acting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, especially in the 3rd act, where half of the stuff was not spoken, it was just shown.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a line of dialogue that says, La'an turns off the pad and has a breakdown. That's probably all you've got in the script.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll see if this has repercussions as well. I mean, she's clearly changed in one way or another, and how that will carry on with any storyline involving her name, whether that's just going to be dropped at this point or whether, there's just some other change in her. But I feel like because we know this is episodic, but the emotions are supposed to carry from episode to episode.
Sure.
That we'll see what happens. All right. Now, Craig, you have a quick warp speed roundtable for us to get to with an appropriate sound effect?
Are we? It says if there's time.
I know.
We're already at 2 hours, boys. Make
Yep.
it
Yeah.
short.
So what's your warp speed roundtable question for us?
All right. So warp speed roundtable. Oh, you didn't. It's not in the show notes. Oh crap! It was the which ship would you rather be on? Which Starfleet ship would you rather be on for battle?
Oh, for battle. I thought it was
For
just like
battle.
pick a ship you want to be on.
Ooh, for battle. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about one.
Yeah.
So, but I won't choose that one because someone else brought that up, and I think let that be their choice. I would have to go with the Defiant. I feel
Oh,
like it's
yeah.
just kind of that's what it's built for. That is literally what it's built for. They use it for other things, but it was built to defeat the Borg. I mean, what else do you want to go into battle with than something like that?
Yeah.
All right. Who's next?
Go ahead, Chuck.
I want a Borg cube.
Ooh.
You didn't say it had to be like a Federation ship.
I did. I said Starfleet.
What? No, you didn't. You said what ship would you want to be in for battle?
Hey, Bernie, can you re-roll the film? And
Yeah.
Go back and
Play that beautiful bean footage.
Yeah. All right. I'll
With
let
a
you-
Borg cube.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
A fully functional one, though, not the artifact or something.
Not the one sitting on the beach in Picard.
Okay.
And it's up on cinder blocks. You know. I'm gonna pick something different, but at first my thought was the USS Vengeance from Into Darkness because it's obviously huge and built to fight. And
Built
it
to
has
take on the Klingons.
That's right. So I was gonna say Defiant, but you already picked that one.
How about a Klingon ship?
I would say
The Galileo
the
with all its defensive weapons.
it has half a photon board.
And
No,
a faulty nacelle.
Yeah. I was gonna say, oh, you messed me up now. Oh, the Delta Flyer. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Short, it's small, nimble. Doesn't
Just be careful how fast you go. That's all I'm
right.
saying.
Yeah.
Don't want to be no salamander.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with all that said, it's time to refill the dilithium chamber and try to warp on out of here. You can find me, Clinton, at Comedy Forecast, all one word with the number 4.com, where I'm going to be putting out some episodes and very shortly the big story of the summer. I guess we'll call it this time around. But who speaks for you guys?
I'll go.
All right.
You can find us by searching for Technorama Podcast anywhere you find fine search engines or podcasts. That's Craig and I do a show every Sunday night where we share news and odd stories and just kind of geek out around the campfire. Well, the microphone anyway, as long as the microphone's not on fire.
Yeah. No, it's more like a garbage can on fire, and that
A
would be
dumpster fire. That's
Yeah.
what we sit around. We sit around a dumpster fire.
the-
And if you
That's-
can't find it right away, ask the Romulan algorithm and they'll be able
Yeah.
to recommend it.
Go to
you.
DuckDuckGo.
How to destroy the universe with us in it.
All right.
All right. Time to hit the theme, boys.
Already? Okay, here we go.
If you like the show, please be sure to tell a friend about it and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter at The Topic is Trek, visit our Facebook page, or visit thetopicistrek.com. Until next time, on behalf of Chuck, Craig, and myself, I'm Clinton, thanking you for listening. And as we always say here on The Topic is Trek, don't put
on that
the
red shirt.
Uh-oh.
Craig has one on. He's dead.
Mine's more maroon. I'm good.
I think we're all maroons, but that's another story.
The maroon color hides the blood.
And we are done.
I think that was a record for us tonight.
Yeah, so much
Indeed.
for making it a shorter show.
Well, that's why I kept cutting the stories down. I had originally, I think, 5 stories in Subspace Chatter, but I said, well, The one we really just need to talk about is Prodigy.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you. We are going to end tonight's broadcast. If the test pattern comes on, I'll be surprised.
Bye, everybody.